absolutely not. I never for a moment felt that my mother was involved in my father's crimes or was aware of it at all.
The rest of the world was skeptical. While countless stories predicted the imminent arrest of Mark, Andrew, and their uncle Peter,
do you have anything to say to the investors?
Ruth Madoff seemed to get the worst of it. It was said she had an office at the firm, that she had been the bookkeeper.
I was the bookkeeper. I was the receptionist. I worked for Bernie in 1961 when I graduated from college. And I left in 1963 when Mark was born, and then Andy, and I was a stay-at-home mom all those years. And later on, when the boys started to work there, we lived within walking distance, and I had an office there where I took care of decorating things and house things and boat bills and managing those things. But I was never the bookkeeper after 1963.
Probably a majority of people can't believe that you can live with someone for 50 years and not know.
It's hard for me to believe, too.
Had you known, would you have turned him in?
I'm glad I didn't. It would have been tough, but I would have left. Whether I turned him in or not, I don't know. I'd like to think I would have, but I couldn't say. I'm being completely honest with you, I have to say.
She was vilified and shunned, harassed on the subway. The press hounded her with headline after headline. Her fiercest critics were her own sons. From the time of your father's confession, I gather you had a certain degree of estrangement from your mother. How come?
Well, she and I barely spoke for 2 years. I struggled tremendously trying to understand her decision to stay by my father's side. I felt so angry with him, so I didn't understand her choice, and I struggled with it, as did Mark.
I never thought of leaving. I don't know why I didn't. I just knew this man for so long, whom I loved for so many years. I didn't know what else to do but stay there.
3 months after his confession, Madoff pled guilty. He was later sentenced to 150 years. Ruth Madoff agreed to forfeit $80 million and all her worldly goods. All the homes, boats, cars, furniture, even Madoff's slippers were auctioned or sold. You were allowed to keep $2.5 million. To a lot of people, that's a lot of money.
It is. It's certainly enough for me. I've used a lot for legal fees.
There is a public perception, and I'm sure you've heard it, that there's got to be a stash somewhere. You know,
I've heard it. I've heard it.
That Bernie Madoff hid it somewhere, and that you know about it.
I wish they'd find it and give it all back.
You both know about it.
My understanding of a Ponzi scheme is that when it's over, there's nothing left, and I certainly don't know of a stash anywhere.
Though 8 employees have been accused of helping with the scheme, no family members have been charged. But the bankruptcy trustee, Irving Picard, and his lead counsel, David Sheehan, are demanding that all the Madoffs cough up virtually every penny they have, claiming they, quote, knew or should have known about Bernie's crimes. Would you agree with Mr. Sheehan, the lawyer for the trustee, when Sheehan says you should be ashamed that you should give every penny back?
Well, obviously I disagree with many of the assertions in the lawsuit that the trustee has filed against me. And I'm hopeful that in time we'll be able to reach a settlement and I'll be able to put this behind me.
Picard says the son's trading operation received millions from Bernie's Ponzi scheme. He's suing Andrew Madoff alone for $60 million, virtually every penny he earned, borrowed, or was given to him by his father over a 10-year period. Let me ask a really intrusive question. How much are you worth as we speak?
Well, I was fortunate over the years running the business that Mark and I ran that generated many millions of dollars in profits and enabled my brother and I both to live a comfortable lifestyle.
You haven't answered the question.
I made, in good years, several $1 million. You know, my life at this point is an open book. The details of my financial past have been laid bare completely in the lawsuit against me. I haven't enjoyed it, but that's the reality that I live in.
Do you fear ending up broke?
I think that it's a very real possibility, but I am prepared to start over again and build myself back up.
Have you talked to your dad?
I have no comment. I'm sorry, I can't help that.
But for Andrew's brother Mark, the weight of the lawsuits, attacks from the media, and the shame became unbearable.
He was absolutely obsessed with the news coverage. He would wake up every morning, immediately comb through the regular newspapers, and that would be followed up by reading blog posts and comments. And I would say, look, you got to shut off your computer. You got to stop subjecting yourself to this, because this is not helpful for you, and it's not helpful for me. And if you keep doing this, it's just going to lead to misery.
And it did. On December 11th, 2010, the second anniversary of his father's arrest, Mark Madoff hung himself, while his 2-year-old son slept in the next room. He said in his last email, "No one wants to hear the truth."
As soon as we saw the caller ID at that early hour on a Saturday morning, we both knew what had happened.
How did you react when you heard that?
It was awful. I wish I could say I was shocked, but I wasn't. He had tried to kill himself a little more than a year before, and that was absolutely devastating. And I had tried to talk to him to understand what he was going through. It was very painful for me and very difficult for me, but I was making it through. And to see him struggling and not making it was terrible. We were very close. He was my best friend, and I wanted to help him.
The night before he killed himself, there was an awful article in the Wall Street Journal. I mean, I understood I was going through those agonies of shame, and it was terrible to feel that we were always so proud of who we were and Bernie's success in the industry. It was so difficult.
She blames herself for Mark's suicide. He'd wanted her to cut off all contact with her husband.
I just wish, until my dying day, that I had done what he wanted. I don't know if it would have made a difference or not, but if I could change things, at least if I had tried, I would have felt a little better. I don't know if it would have mattered. It's the most awful thing that can happen to anybody. Suicide of a child.
After her son's death, Ruth Madoff told her husband she was finished with him. No visits, no phone calls. That decision led to a reconciliation of sorts with Andrew.
That's partly why I'm sitting right here. He and Catherine wanted to write this book. They thought it would be good if I was a part of it, and I agreed because I wanted to reconcile.
Neither Ruth nor Andrew will benefit from sales of the book. Catherine Hooper will. You live just over there. You miss the apartment?
Not really.
She lives a simpler life now in a 3-room apartment in South Florida. But she remains Ruth Madoff, lawful wife of the greatest financial criminal in history. Why haven't you filed for a divorce from this man?
I don't know. It doesn't matter to me. He's going to die in prison. I certainly don't want to find another man these days.
He'll probably see this interview. Are you concerned about it?
I was thinking about that. No, I'm not concerned. He should hear it.
Believe her or not, the thousands of victims may have little sympathy for Andrew and Ruth, but it can't be denied that they too are victims of Bernie Madoff. That's Mark and Andrew.
Mm-hmm. In happier times.
They lost a son and brother and will forever carry the shame of the Madoff name.
What he did to me, to my brother, and to my family is unforgivable. What he did to thousands of other people, destroyed their lives. I'll never understand it, and I'll never forgive him for it, and I'll never speak to him again.
מכאן לנשיא אובמה והקול היהודי, לפי סקר של